As a former pro of several game genres, and as a programmer and developer who explained and taught these systems professionally between the late 90s and around 2018, it's become very obvious to me that ranked systems need a real wave of innovation for the most part, and that most people under around 40ish or so, they don't know enough about these systems to weigh in on the topic properly, since they're not programmers, they didn't help develop these over years and years, and they only have the consumer perspective. That might sound like, well, that's just all of us buying this thing. That's not enough of a perspective. You have to know what it is from both the consumer and the developer perspective to have the complete picture. To know how this topic really unfolds firsthand, you've got to have the high-level gaming skills across multiple genres, and you need to have been a decent programmer since at least 1995, if not earlier. That makes this age group extremely restricted. So first, let's start with the origin of all modern ranked systems. These all come from a system that was originally developed for turn-based one-on-one board game chess, the ELO system. Now, this system has been in use since around 1970 around the entire world, and since even earlier in 1960 here in the US, where it was both invented and implemented first. Until this system, chess skill was pretty much entirely subjective, and there was a lot of debate on who was better than who. Again though, this system was meant for one-on-one, turn-based board games, and it has been widely known since that invention that these systems would not work properly or well in any other format other than one-on-one. The turn-based part ended up not being a deal breaker like one-on-one was, as the system turned out to work really well for RTS when they started implementing large-scale online one-on-one communities. This was named a modified ELO system, even though it's pretty much the exact same formula of ELO, simply put into an RTS score sheet format so the relevant numbers could be calculated. This required almost no knowledge, advanced work, or extensive hours or extraneous circumstances, which would make these modifications very difficult to implement, even though it may sound like it's a complicated job. Now, although ELO, which is the underlying rule set of just about any ranked system, has been in use for well over half a century already, the modern aesthetic and arrangement of it that we all know of was created during the late 2000s development of StarCraft II. This was the first time people saw a popularized bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, and higher ranked league system with icons and gamified effects for when you gain or lose points or rank up or down. This system was so popular and worked so well that we started seeing it being picked up and licensed by every major developer. The real problem started, well, they kind of showed themselves early on though. In fact, they started during StarCraft II's multiplayer, the very game that it was supposed to be designed for. See, there wasn't a one-on-one competitive mode only in StarCraft II, even though that's where most of the competitive appeal and especially all the pro tournaments were aimed at. There were 2-on-2, 3-on-3, and 4-on-4 formats, and the rank system just fell apart terribly when it was implemented here in the same way that it was on the one-on-one ladder. It did a bad job of judging skill level, and the leagues were an absolute mess, being a terribly inaccurate representation of your ability. The obvious culprit was the fact that it was no longer a one-on-one format, and a much larger, much more complicated set of game-specific calculations would have to be created for each game that wants a proper system for their team formats. Now, all of this was back in 2010. You'd think that in 15 years or so, they'd have tried a bunch of different solutions, and we'd have, by now, a wide variety of systems that worked in slightly varying ways, trying to find a good solution. Good old capitalistic trial and error, right? Well, spoiler alert, they haven't. In fact, I can only point out two popular games in the last 15, 16 years that have managed to break this terrible Activision Blizzard patented system paradigm, and both of them are received better by their communities for having that. Apex Legends went with its own complete system, and Delta Force has recently followed suit with its own. Both examples are significantly better at gauging team skill levels versus individual ones, and they prioritize pure win-loss a whole lot less, and your own performance stats relative to the ranked tier that you're in's averages on that class, hero, etc. a whole lot more. Now, are both of these perfect? Nah. There's a few things that we could probably stand to improve on these models as well, but they are definitely better than anything ELO or modified ELO, as those formats were proven to be inaccurate and overall bad for any games other than one-on-one format as long ago as 2010. So the fact that the vast majority of companies still use this proven bad trash system shows laziness. They want to purchase the patented system and copy pasta it instead of all the hard work that it would take to create your own system, just like Apex or Delta have. No non-one-on-one game should ever be based purely on win-loss or even majority on win-loss, since hackers, throwers, people with bad internet, server crashes, game crashes, Marvel Rivals knows about all that, all exist in an annoyingly large percentage, and every one of these systems expects us, the players, to eat punishment for all of these unfair and unjust circumstances. The real problem is boosted players in these types of systems, though. Group systems all contain an insane amount of boosted people that shouldn't be in higher leagues, but they're streamers or especially content creators of some level of fame and get carried by groups of pros or just groups of higher level players. So far, nobody other than Delta Force has managed to address this problem at all in their ranked system, where individual performance metrics relative to the skill tiers averages are around 70% of what you will go up or down, and because of this, even in a group, the amount you get after a game can be very, very different based on the differences in how everyone did. The content creator space, especially women, are especially horrible at this. YouTube and other platforms are full of content from people flaunting their rank as credentials in some kind of an instructional or an educational video when they didn't do pure solo climbs. The higher the number of ranked matches you had anywhere between bronze and diamond above 0 that were in a group, well, the higher the likelihood that person is boosted to some degree. As someone that's done both grouped climbs and purely solo climbs to top tiers, they are like playing two entirely different games. I see a lot of big content creators downplaying this undeniable fact because it would destroy their credibility. And to that, I say good. Nobody should be giving you any credit to begin with until you can prove you actually belong there. Your audiences are majority going to have to face solo queue hell, so at least you content creators could do is put yourselves through some of that same experience in order to be relatable and truthful. But we know most of them will disagree with me and probably attack me for using my uniquely high level of expertise to weigh in on this very specific topic, because any further attention on this would warrant investigations that would expose most of them of illegitimacy of one type or another. So, while I wait for the enablers to roll in and unknowingly prove me right, why don't you share some of your unfair experiences with the matchmakers, either in the most recent Marvel Rivals or in some older games? I'll be back in another video soon to talk about the problems with tanks in hero shooters. Right now, once again, a lot of people are weighing in on that topic, but they lack the expertise and the high level of skill to reason it out properly. So we'll bring in plenty of both and shed a large floodlight on that issue. So until then, stay up on that high tier, players. The view from up here is always wonderful.